So my presentation is about PhilPapers, and as we know, PhilPapers is a comprehensive index of philosophical works. And the goal of my talk is to consider some of the problems one can find in PhilPapers and to outline possible solutions. So I'm going to consider four problems. The first two problems concern the fact that some proper supercategories are missing, and the fact that some categories are not related to proper supercategories. After that, I'm going to consider the so-called miscategories and the problems entailed by them. Finally, I'm going to show that in PhilPapers, some papers are underclassified or overclassified, and in other cases, some papers are not classified at all. So I explain how these problems can compromise our ability to find philosophical papers by using PhilPapers. So I will focus on practical issues. So in PhilPapers categorization, one might find many categories having no proper supercategories. So, for example, you can find aesthetic cognition and mathematical cognition, but not cognition. You can find legal positivism and positivism about economics, but not positivism. And these categories, the categories without a proper supercategory, are placed under other super categories. So, for example, legal positivism is placed under the nature of law and legal systems, and positivism about economics is placed under the status of economics. These may compromise our ability to find and to categorize philosophical works, because suppose I'm writing a paper on legal positivism. Obviously, I would be interested in works about philosophy of law, but my work could also benefit from a more general discussion about positivism and how legal positivism relates to other forms of positivism. But the current PhilPapers categorization doesn't help me, because there is not the category positivism. So I wouldn't be able to find papers on positivism unless they relate to legal positivism or positivism about economics. In addition, I wouldn't be able to find any term to use to properly categorize a work about positivism in general. So here, the solution is quite simple. The solution is to add the category positivism and then represent legal positivism and positivism about economics as child nodes of positivism. And I would say that the category positivism could be perhaps placed under the supercategory continental philosophy. It's just an idea. There are many other cases where categories where we found categories without a proper supercategory. And here there are some cases I found, but I can provide a longer list of instances of this problem. And for each of these cases, one should add the missing category and then place under this new category or the related subcategories, as I just explained. The second problem is slightly different from the first one, because here the problem is that there are some categories that are placed just under non-ideal supercategory, even though in these cases, in PhilPapers categorization, there are these ideal categories. So, for example, knowledge of emotion is under aspects of emotions, but not under any subcategory of knowledge. So here again, this might compromise my ability to find philosophical works. Suppose, for example, that I'm writing a paper about knowledge, and obviously I would be interested in works about knowledge general, and also in works about specific types of knowledge. And since in PhilPapers there is the categories knowledge, and this category has many subcategories, I wouldn't have problems in finding most of these works. Most of the works about knowledge and different types of knowledge. However, it would be difficult to find works about knowledge of emotions because it's not connected in any way with the category knowledge. So one can easily solve this problem by representing knowledge of emotion is a child node of category under knowledge, a child node of a category under knowledge, such as varieties of knowledge, for example. And what I'm saying can be applied to all the other similar cases, and here too I can provide a list of all the instances of this problem. The third problem I want to consider concerns the so-called miscategories. So the PhilPapers system makes a great use of this type of category, and as these screenshots show, at every level of this classification there are this type of category. And each miscategory contains those philosophical works that cannot be classified in any of the other categories of the same level. So consider, for example, the perceptibility of emotion by Joel Smith. This work is about emotions and our ability to perceive other people's emotions by observing their expressions. This work is classified under direct knowledge and other minds, emotional expression, and also in theories of emotion, MISC. And the reason is that while this work addresses a topic that has to do with theories of emotion, this topic does not relate with the other three subcategories of theories of emotion that are cognitive theories of emotions, somatic and feeling theories of emotion, and perceptual theories of emotion. So the paper is categorized under theories of emotion MISC. The choice to use MISC categories is, however, questionable for at least two main reasons. So, first of all, MISC categories can be harmful for the system as a whole because they make the system not future-proof. Indeed, items are usually classified in a certain category because they have one or more qualities in common. So, for example, the philosophical works classified in the category philosophy of action share the obvious quality of being about philosophy of action. These philosophical works have this quality independently of the way we classify them. The same, however, does not apply to the philosophical works classified in a MISC category. Because as we have seen for the paper written by Joel Smith, The Perceptibility of Emotion, this paper is categorized under theories of emotion MISC because the paper is not about any of the other topics the other subcategories refer to. And this paper has this quality in virtue of this specific classification. But suppose that at some point this classification is modified by adding new subcategories, and that one of these new categories concern the specific theory of emotion to which the paper by Joel Smith referred to. So this paper would lose the quality of not being about any of the topic to which the other subcategories refer to. As a consequence, if the paper is not moved from the category theories of emotion MISC to the new category, the paper would be in the wrong category. And that's a problem for a whole big system if over time many new categories are added and the position of the items classified in its category is not updated. Secondly, miscategories don't really help people to find papers because they don't include paper about a specific topic. And let's say that it's less likely that someone looks at papers placed under a miscategory, especially if the miscategory includes a very high number of papers, like the cases in these screenshots. Obviously, it's not possible to just eliminate all the miscategories at once because it would be a major change. So what I'm proposing is to slightly change a rule, a recommendation that people should follow when they categorize the papers. Because according to this rule, each paper should be ultimately categorized in maximum 3 leaf categories. I would replace this rule with another one requiring to categorize each paper under maximum 3 categories other than miscategories, or, where impossible, in the immediate supercategory. So, and this new version of the rule must be seen as a step towards the elimination of the miscategories, and has 2 benefits. First of all, the papers categorized by following the new version of the rule are more likely to be found because the leaf categories are, other than MISC, are more specific and more likely to be checked. Secondly, the papers categorized by following the new version of the rule will be always in the right category, even though new categories are added and the position of existing papers is not updated. Consider again the paper by Joel Smith. We can go back. So, the paper is categorized under direct knowledge and other minds, emotional expression, and theories of emotion MISC. If we follow the new version of the rule, we should classify the paper under direct knowledge of other minds, emotional expression, and simply theories of emotion. That is the immediate supercategory of theories of emotion MISC. Therefore, the paper will be categorized based on the topics it addresses, and this categorization will be always correct, even in case new categories are added and the position of this specific paper is not updated. Then, finally, the last problem I would like to consider concerns the fact that some papers seem to be miscategorized for different reasons. First of all, there are many philosophical papers that are not categorized at all, like the screenshot shows. So here I would say that in order to avoid these, people should not be allowed to submit a philosophical work without categorizing it. Secondly, there are philosophical works that, although they are categorized under 3 leaf categories, they seem to be underclassified. So it seems that in these cases, 3 categories are not enough. The first example is a paper written by Frederick Dolan about bipower. And this paper is categorized under 3 categories concerning the philosophers considered in this paper, like Hannah Arendt and Michel Foucault. But is not categorized under any category concerning the topic. So this means that I'm not able to find this paper if I look in categories concerning social and political philosophy. Another example concerns a book by Bernard Williams about truth. That is categorized under Bernard Williams, fictional genealogy, and historical genealogy, but is not characterized under category concerning truth. So this means that I'm not able to find this paper if I look in categories concerning philosophy of language and truth. And these examples are probably questioning the recommendation to categorize a paper under maximum 3 leaf categories, since in those cases, 3 categories don't seem to be enough. So one might wonder whether it may make sense to increase the number of these categories one could use to categorize the papers. In other cases, there is perhaps a problem of overclassification. That is, the papers are classified in too many categories, and in some cases, people who submit the works, categorize the work in 3 leaf categories, but also in other non-leaf categories. But the choice of some of them is very questionable. So, for example, we can consider the paper written by Shimko, that is characterized under 7 categories, but many of them are about semantics. So one might wonder if they all are necessary. Moreover, the paper is also categorized under philosophy MISC, that is a very broad category, and it's very unlikely that people look in this category to find papers. Secondly, it seems that philosophy MISC includes areas such as teaching philosophy, so doesn't seem to be that this paper has something to do with this category. Another case of overclassification is the paper by Caitlin Puccio, that is categorized under 5 categories, and among them there are philosophy of mind MISC and philosophy of mind general works. But for example, I'm not too sure we really need both these categories. Also, the paper is categorized under philosophy MISC, that, as I said before, is a very broad category and does not seem to be relevant for this paper. So I would say that probably it's not a bad idea to think to change the recommendation and say that paper should be categorized in maximum 5 leaf categories instead of 3. But at the same time, it seems necessary to give to the users more clear directions in order to avoid that papers are overclassified and categorized in wrong categories. So in conclusion, I propose to add some new categories and to connect them with already existing subcategories. So for example, I propose to add the category positivism and to connect it with categories concerning specific types of positivism. Then I propose to create new relations between already existing categories and subcategories. So for example, I suggest that the subcategory knowledge of emotion should be represented as a child node of varieties of knowledge. I propose to change the recommendation people should follow to categorize their works. According to the current recommendation, each paper should be ultimately categorized in maximum 3 leaf categories. I would replace this rule with another one requiring to categorize each paper under maximum 3 categories other than its categories, or where that's impossible in the immediate supercategory. And I finally propose to carefully think whether to recommend to categorize a paper under maximum 3 categories may cause some papers to be underclassified. And if this is the case, then probably it's not bad to increase this limit. But also, it's important to give to the users a clear direction to help them to choose the categories in a more effective way.